Are we on?
I think so.
You sound like you're on.
You sound like you're on.
We're both on. Well, good afternoon. It is afternoon. Wow, this day's flying by. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to this conversation with the esteemed, venerable Josh Socalled Dolgin.
I'm esteemed. Out there I was esteemed. It's very hot today. Yesterday was hotter.
There we go. I think that's the,
Yeah.
Anyway. So, Josh, you don't mind, is it okay if I call you Josh?
It is. As long as I can call you Seth.
All right, deal.
Deal.
It only seems fair. We spoke with you last year, and you told us all kinds of great stuff.
Who was here last year?
Okay. Well.
Okay, so this is part 2.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Wow. You came back for more.
Better be good.
So, Josh, Josh and I were catching up, chit-chatting about, what's been going on. And he's got a lot of stuff to tell us about, a lot of fascinating different projects and all. But one of them is, in a way, kind of a somewhat atypical or a left turn or a right turn, but a fascinating turn to me. And that is that Josh informs me that he's actually going to be teaching at McGill University this year, which is where he went to university.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us about what you're going to be teaching and how this happened and how we can all go there and sign up for your
So
class.
you're right. It is a left turn. And I really didn't want to be an academic, and I didn't set out to, work in that domain. And I only have a bachelor's degree, so it's surprising but exciting. And I couldn't say no because of the honor that it is to have gone to McGill University and then have them say, "Hey, would you like? I've somehow become an expert a bit about something, and would you like to come and teach there?" So actually, I've taught at Concordia a few years ago in the theater department. I taught a course that was actually through Mark Sussman, who's an amazing puppet professor at Concordia. He got me to come and teach a class, and I taught a class about timing, and I talked about magic and cinema and editing and just sort of timing and the idea of time. And that was a very successful course. It was really exciting. We made a really awesome production. But this time, just to tell you how it happened, I met an amazing scholar named Christopher Silver. I don't know if you've heard of him. And if any of these things are interesting, you should note them for later, because this is actually something really worth checking out. Christopher Silver teaches at McGill. He's from LA. And he has just published a book called Recording History, which is a study of Jews in Muslim lands in North Africa and the history of Jewish music in Morocco and Algeria and like all those northern African places where Jews lived for a long time and became really entrenched in the music scene. In fact, the most famous singers, the most famous orchestras and instrumental soloists were often Jewish, playing Arab music. And this was until the end of French colonialism and other colonialisms in North Africa, when Jews and the colonial powers, that's a very complicated history, that is in this amazing book called Recording History. You should check it out. It's not really Ashkenazic Jewish, and maybe it's not in the Yiddish Book Center, but it's a brilliant book. And we met in Montreal, and he gave me a copy of the book. It blew me away. We became friends. We're having coffee. We're hanging out. And he said, you should really teach a course at McGill. And I laughed and said, "You're insane. But you wrote a great book, so you're obviously very smart. So you're smart and insane. That's a great combination." And he said, "I'm going to talk to the chair So the next thing I knew, I get a call from the chair of the Jewish Studies department at McGill. He says, let's have a meeting. We had a meeting. He said, what would you teach at McGill? I said, are you crazy too? Is everybody crazy in the academy? And, but he said, we'll be very interested to have you come and teach a course. So that'll be in December. I will teach this class in the Jewish Studies department. I got a lot of work to do to make that happen. And what will it be?
Yeah.
Great question. I mean, because I'm not an academic, I can't come at it totally from an academic point of view. I don't have a thesis. I haven't worked out like my overarching kind of argument about that puts it all together. I'm not Hank Snetsky, in case you were wondering. And Hank Snetsky is such a great Hank Snetsky who can actually speak with authority and teach classes like that. But I'm just going to teach something like that I feel I sort of do have a handle on, which is a broad kind of look at Ashkenazi Jewish music and sort of break it into 5 or 6 different kind of categories or sort of areas to come out of, which are, and the sources of that music. So I guess I would start with the sources. Well, So really, this is the hot seat.
Yeah.
What are you teaching at McGill next year? But essentially, there's cantorial music, and which is a very complicated, incredibly, it's actually way more complicated than I thought. History of where that music comes from. I'll look at klezmer, which is, this instrumental Eastern European Jewish dance music.
I've got a great textbook that you should assign them to read.
Totally.
That unit.
I mean, that's what's exciting about this class are the different books that have been written already. Your book, Joel Rubin's book, Zev Feldman's book, Mark Slobin's book, and all their articles and stuff like that. So I think it'll be more hardcore than what they expect. I think they might think it's one of those clapping for credits kind of courses. But I'm really gonna make them read a lot of stuff. Okay, so klezmer, cantorial, Yiddish song, which could be art song, folk song, Yiddish theater music, Hasidic music, and nigunim. That's already a pretty vast selection of things to think about. And then, so each of those could be sort of what do they call them in school? They call them units. I would also love to talk about the source of this music and the sort of the neighboring cultures that the music influenced and was influenced by. So we'll talk about Romanian music, Ukrainian music, Polish folk music, Russian folk music, and see why Yiddish music is different and similar, and of course Roma music and the styles, how they changed and influenced each other. And that'll be a course right there. Tell your kids to come to McGill and go into the Jewish Studies department. And it'll force me to really think about these things and kind of write up my thoughts about it. I sort of want to base it on my record collection. From last year, you remember maybe that I'm a hip-hop producer, mostly. So I collect old records, and that's what got me into Yiddish music to begin with, was the really just digging through vinyl and finding it myself. I didn't find it through the klezmer revival, as many people now, if they know about klezmer, it's because they heard the klezmatics. I sort of skipped that just because I didn't really hear about the klezmatics. Maybe I heard about John Zorn early on, but it was really finding, to me, the primary sources, these Yiddish theater records and the klezmer and Mickey Katz and Dave Terrace on vinyl. So I have all these records. So I want to make that sort of the heart of the course. I want to bring in records. I want people to see the real thing. I want people to pick a record and do their paper on the record, and like I'll bring a million different types of records, and people can pick a record and kind of personalize it and make it tactile.
Sounds fantastic. And you know, I think you need to hear this. You're going to be an amazing teacher, and they're going to love it. Because,
Okay. Thank you. Woo!
You know, because, I mean, one thing, you have many things going for you, like you know about all this stuff.
Like my hair.
Clearly your hair. But you're, you know, just listening to him talk about this, the enthusiasm, right, is so infectious. And so he's going to infect all of these students with that enthusiasm about this music. And it's going to transform their lives. And it's going to change your life, too, because you're going to wind up doing this more, and you're going to wind up writing a book based on all the work that you're putting into this.
Okay.
So I have some real hopes for you, for your future.
Thank you, Seth.
You're
Do you
welcome.
mind if I call you Seth? It's okay?
As long as I can call you Josh.
Yeah.
Is
But
that
at
short
McGill,
for
they call
something?
me Professor D.
Professor D.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a great introduction
Cool. Let's see.
to this situation.
What else is going
But
on?
I'm also nervous and terrified. Thank you. Oh, wait, we have a question already.
Well, can we save the questions for the
Okay,
end,
save your
please?
questions.
We're gonna.
And by the way, because I'm a hip hop producer, I'm half deaf. So please yell your questions when we get to it, especially if you have a mask on. Okay.
We'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay.
There's a few other things I want to
Okay.
go over with Josh. You know, we're beyond the pandemic finally. Hopefully, put aside. You know, it's still out there, but so. Point being that, you know, your work and a lot of musicians' work, artists' work who had to be among people, took quite a pause for a couple of years there.
Yeah.
But now you're back out doing things, and you know you have been for the past half year or maybe even a year. I'm not sure how long. You have been working on some new projects, and.
Okay.
I was wondering if you could share some of them and maybe you have something that we could listen to also about.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you were here last year, this will all make sense. If you weren't here last year, you don't know me from Adam, as they say, and how I got into Yiddish music and how that influences my repertoire and my practice. But most people were here last year, so you sort of know that already. So you're right. For 2 years, not much was happening, except online. A lot of things were happening. There was a lot of Zooming going on. In fact, there was a whole new community that really blossomed during the pandemic, just of all these virtual programs and a ways sort of for people all to be together virtually from around the world. In fact, you didn't need to go to London Klezfest. You could just watch the programming from London Klezfest and the programming from Los Angeles Klezfest or whatever. So in a way, our community really showed an amazing resilience and also support for the artists during that time. For me to be hired to do a song or two for some program and be paid a couple $100.
For a Bob Dylan tribute in London.
Exactly, for example.
And you don't even like Bob Dylan.
I don't not like Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
I'm not obsessed like some other people on this stage
Okay.
are. But that was a fun project. And in fact, things like that kept me alive and kept me from just jumping out a window. That was a cool that actually turned out pretty well.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it was not fun. And my life when I'm a working artist, like the work is fun. It's incredibly it's like I'm so lucky for a job where the work itself is like it's the getting to the job is the work. But once you get there, it's super fun. Like you're literally at the party creating joy and making people jump up and down and have a great time.
That's why they call it playing music. It's play.
That's right.
As opposed to work.
Absolutely. And I mean, getting there, getting the gig, you know, that is a schlep. not working is scary. It's all you don't know when you're going to be working or not. There's a trade-off. But during the pandemic, the trade-off was really harsh. I saw all my friends who could keep working, basically, and they were working from home, and we were not allowed to work. We were not allowed to go out and do the thing we do. So it's great to be back. And what am I working on now? I guess I should. Are you interested? I'll tell. I'll tell you.
We want to know what Josh is doing now.
Okay.
Duh,
Thank you.
right?
Okay.
Right.
So I've got this project that started before the pandemic with a big band from Austria. They're called the Lungau Big Band, and they've been around for 40 years, and they're really based just outside of Salzburg, and it's a town called Lungau, and it's like a 30-piece, proper, old-school big band. And somehow I got connected with them. They heard a project I did. I did it here once. Did you ever see me with string quartet? Okay, that was a fun project. It was an album called Die Frosch. Hello. And they heard that. They said, hey, we like this. Could we expand this and do, how would you feel about singing with a big band? So I said I would feel great about that. That would be super fun. So they do all sorts of different programs with different singers, but they're Austrian. They're literally Austrian dudes, all dudes, by the way, which is a weird cultural blind spot in Austria. They have this whole culture of big bands, not a woman to be seen. I don't know if there's no women in the jazz programs in the Austrian music schools, but there's just not. So that's a little weird. But they're amazing musicians, and the lead trumpet player from this project is a musical genius, and I sent him a bunch of old recordings of repertoire that I haven't done yet, that I've always wanted to do. Things like, just off the top of my head, now I can't remember all the repertoire, but Grüne Blätter by Moishe Oischer. Green Leaves. It's an awesome song. He wrote it up for big band. Okay, he wrote up, Shabbos. I think I sang it last year. I think I'm gonna sing it again this year. It's a great song from the repertoire of Ben Bonus and Minna Byrne. And he wrote up a version of that, a reggae version, but like for big band, and it kicks ass. And I show up in Austria. We have a show, so I go to Austria. He's written up all this repertoire. We have one rehearsal and we do a show with 40 people or whatever in a band. Like it's kind of a mind-blowing experiment. But because they're such great musicians, because he's such a great arranger, we did a whole repertoire of Yiddish songs, art song, theater songs, Yiddish, some folk songs, a lullaby, the whole range of Yiddish song. We even did some klezmer. I sent them a klezmer tune that he wrote up for the big band to play. I taught the rhythm section what to do during the arrangement. And we did a show, and it was awesome. And then since then, we have done it about 6 or 7 times, or maybe 10, because we went on a mini tour of just Austria. So sure, we played Vienna, but we also played in these weird little towns throughout Austria. And Austria, I don't know if you've been lately, but if you get out of the major towns, it could be 1836. It's still pretty agrarian and rural and undeveloped, and like farmers and shepherds. And it's, frankly, as a Jewish guy, it's a little bit creepy, but, or staying, I stayed for a week in Salzburg in view of Hitler's nest, across the way. So, there's still that history there, which was very actually powerful for me to sing Yiddish songs in these little Austrian towns and bring the story to them, and not make it too heavy-handed. Actually, we did some Holocaust repertoire. Wow. we did a song by, Mordechai Gebürtig. And so that in that way, I'm able to sort of talk about that a little bit and just sort of bring it home a little bit about where these songs come from and where we are right now listening to these songs and sort of how that resonates, having this all Austrian band also like implicated in this story and in the presentation. And they were so into it. The band, the musicians were so into it. And I could talk to each of them, each of the instruments, to sort of make it personal for them and give them tons of things to listen to. And the pianist, like, you should check out this. And the clarinetist, you should hear Dave Terrace. And so I got this group of 40 incredibly professional, amazing Austrian musicians really thinking about Yiddish music. So that's an exciting project. We actually recorded it, but I had a terrible cold. So my voice is terrible. But I'm going to try to erase my voice and re-sing everything.
So should we bring this 40-piece band
absolutely
here to Yidstock?
Yes, we should. But I've actually done it outside of Austria with different big bands.
Oh, okay.
So I did it in Toronto and got a big band. And because the arrangements are so great, we had one rehearsal and we did the program. Actually, that's online if you're curious to check this out. Look up Socalled Big Band. You'll find that whole program. It actually turned out pretty good. That was really in the depths of the pandemic. Everybody was wearing a mask, but we managed to put it together. It was outside, so it was okay. It was allowed. It was during one of those lapses in the rules where you could, okay, now you're allowed to be 6 feet apart. Okay, let's quickly have a concert with a big band. But that was crazy.
You also wrote a musical based on Isaac Babel's stories?
Well, that's old news.
That's old?
But I can talk about that too. I mean, it's just a grab bag. So-called grab bag. What am I doing? What do I do? What do I work on? So we'll go back to that. Why not?
Yeah.
But that was 10 years ago. Did you see it at the Siegel Center? Tales from Odessa. Did you see? No. Anybody was in Montreal at the time? The Dora Wasserman Yiddish Theater? Okay, so 10 years ago, I wrote a musical with puppets. I make puppets. And it was a one-night only thing. And I'd never written a musical before. And it was this excuse to put together dance, music, singers, actors, designers, and to try to put on a show. It was supposed to be like a variety show, but I have always loved musicals. And I thought, okay, this will be like a kick in the ass. Am I allowed to say that?
I think so.
Tuchus?
How about,
Sorry.
Much better.
Okay, a kick in the tuchus to write a musical. So I did. It's called The Season. And it was a one-night only thing. And we put together a whole musical for this one-night presentation. And it was for me, like, just thrilling to have a ton of musicians and dancers and bring really collaboration on a whole new level.
Like Busby Berkeley production number kind of thing?
What's that? Busby Berkeley, but with fuzzy puppets. Fuzzby Berkeley.
There you go.
There was a big Deus ex machina at the end. This big, like, sort of huge disco ball, like as big as, but it was a spaceship, and these fuzzies from another planet. This like red fuzzy thing. It peeled open and revealed this like shiny spaceship thing, and then it ascended to this with like smoke as they all sang. And
so it was autobiographical.
It's a true story.
Yeah.
So there was because it was just a one-off. I thought, okay, that was it. But I quite liked the music that ended up being written, so I ended up recording it. If you're curious, you can check it out. It's called The Season. But there was someone in the audience who worked at the Bronfman Center, it used to be called, the Siegel Center now, in Montreal. And he was running the Yiddish theater there? Well, he was the artistic director of the whole theater, but part of their mandate still to this day is it's a very functioning and interesting Yiddish theater. He saw this musical that I wrote and he said, hey, would you like to come and write something for the Dora Wasserman Yiddish Theater? And I said, wow, that would be awesome. And it was more than I expected coming out of this one night only show that I'd written. And he said, okay, what would you do? And I thought about it, and I'd seen a lot of productions that they do. They often do kind of what we now call jukebox musicals, where they take a bunch of songs from and like sort of stitch together a show based on a bunch of existing material. When you call it a jukebox musical, now it's like Tina Turner the musical. They'll take all the Tina Turner songs and make a story out of it. It's a bit of a stretch most of the time, and it's never going to quite be as good as an organic musical that's written about a story with original music. But whatever, that's neither here nor there. Often they do that, or they've done a bunch of original musicals, and of course, in their golden age, they presented all the great sort of Yiddish theater of the time. This was Dora Wasserman, whose daughter, Bryna Wasserman, is still active in the theater world, and she went and ran the New York Folkspina for a while. Anyway, but to me, it's like, what kind of story would you like to tell in the Yiddish theater? And like, it's a complicated question. What kind of story needs to be told in Yiddish? You know, sadly, that most of the audience is not going to understand the Yiddish text. So there's already subtitles. So for me, it was important to come up with a story that needed to be told in Yiddish, or would be interesting to be seen enacted in this language that nobody, mostly in the audience, is going to understand. So there better be a damn good reason why the show is in Yiddish. So I racked my brain for a while, and I thought eventually of the work of Isaac Babel. Babel was this, if you're not familiar with Isaac Babel, and a lot of North Americans aren't, somehow he's not that well known. He was a Soviet writer, and in Soviet lands, he's super well known. He's like one of the great writers. But here, somehow, at least, and I studied literature at McGill, and I even studied Russian literature at McGill, and I sort of missed the boat on Babel. Well, Isaac Babel was a Jewish guy from Odessa who wrote these. He didn't write much. In fact, that's what got him eventually killed by Stalin. Like a lot of you know about that story in the I guess it was the 50s, early 50s, late 40s. Where there were these purges of intellectuals and writers. This is an old story. You know this tragic story, and Isaac Babel got caught up in that and was arrested, and nominally was killed because he wasn't producing enough. They said which is insane. Please look that up for more details about that tragic chapter. But before he was murdered by the Stalin regime, he wrote incredible short stories and a novel, and his most famous work is a sort of diary about the revolution, where he was fighting with is anybody a Babel scholar here? Because I'm kind of in trouble here, but what's that?
You're babbling.
Thank you. Oh, good one. So those are called the Red Cavalry stories, and they're incredible. They're just and interesting to see from the perspective of a Jewish guy in with a bunch of Cossacks, really, during the Russian Revolution. Okay, so he's famous for that, and then he wrote these things called the Odessa stories, which are stories about a sort of fictional gangster king named Benya Krik, and sort of it paints a picture of the Jewish underworld of Odessa. the pimps, the prostitutes, the criminals, but also just the power structure of Odessan life and how the Jews fit into Odessan life in general, and the police chief and the corruption and what they're eating and and the music, and it's incredibly detailed and poetic and awesome writing. I'm reading it in English in translation, but it's just mind-blowing writing, and a unique and interesting slice of Jewish life, pre-Holocaust Jewish life in Odessa. And I thought, even though these are stories written in Russian, I thought that could be a world that would be interesting to see in Yiddish. So I pitched that to him. He said, that sounds viable. And I went to work trying to turn all these stories into one musical. And in a way, I was sort of trying to do the anti-Fiddler on the Roof. Fiddler on the Roof, as we all know, is based on these Yiddish stories by Sholem Aleichem, and it's a huge success, and it's kind of a cultural albatross that we carry. Everybody is like, oh, you're into Yiddish stuff, Fiddler on the Roof.
Why is it a cultural albatross?
Well, because it's become all that people think about, and they don't even think about the source of the material. They don't even think, oh, what's Sholem Aleichem? And it's kind of a simulacra. It's a version of something that didn't even exist in the first place. It's just, and it's great. It's one of my favorite musicals of all time. It's awesome. Every song is a banger, and it should play forever in every. It was a big hit in Japan when it first came out. But I wanted to do something that was a bit grittier and that actually kind of delved into this Yiddish stuff that I was discovering through the old records, and I wanted to sort of tell a bit of more of a nuanced story of I could play a sound of it. Of course, the trick is to how do you turn all those stories, all those characters into one narrative, and that's a trick. And I sort of actually looked at how Francis Ford Coppola turned The Godfather into a movie. And he took The Godfather and he tore up the book and he put each page into like a bigger page. He taped each page so that it had a big border around it. So I did that. And then you go through the book, and I've done this since. It's a great method if any of you are looking into turning a book or a property into a new project. It gives you tons of room and kind of takes the text out of this sort of like out of the confines of the book where you're like writing in a margin or you're writing on a different page or something. It lets you sort of just like participate with the text. So you take a big pen and now you have the book and you just start marking it up and underlining important things or cool things or things that jump out at you about the character or about or just interesting moments. And by the end, you really can see what needs to be in the new thing that you're turning it into. Trying to turn a text into artwork is always going to be like problematic, and you're never going to get the thing that you started with, and that should never be necessarily the aim to exactly enact exactly the thing, because it's not going to work the same way. A novel doesn't work the same way as a play doesn't work the same way as a movie even. So even to turn a play into a movie or vice versa, the brain works differently when it's watching these different things. So I started outlining things. Okay, I really underlined this, and you start to just see things, and then you collect those bits and you put them together into a story, which I did. And then I worked with a great writer named, he's so great I forgot his name. He's in Washington. I'm blanking on his name for some reason. I worked with him with Theodore Bikel. He was the director for Laughter Through Tears. Did anybody see Theodore Bikel do a show about Sholem Aleichem?
Yes.
You saw it in Montreal. In Washington. Exactly. Cool. So that's where he developed this show. And the director, so after Theodore Bikel's partner, Tamara Brooks, passed away, she was his accompanist. She was an incredible musician, pianist, conductor. She passed away, and he had a gig in Montreal to do his show. And they asked me to be the accompanist. So I ended up working with Bikel for like 2 months on this show, and with this director guy from Washington, who had a really great. He was just an amazing theatrical mind. So that's another story. But when I needed to do this, I thought, who could I get as a writer? And I asked this guy to be the writer, and he really just banged it out. I gave him the stories, I gave him the arc that I wanted to talk about, and he just created exactly the script that I needed to do that, to fit the songs that I knew had to happen here and there. Let's just hear 1 second of the music. Here is... This is the wedding. It opens up in a graveyard. The show starts in a graveyard, and then people start coming out of, the kind of ghosts are coming out of the graveyard, and they put together this set of a wedding table, and then they have a wedding. Because in the book there's a wedding, and all great musicals should start with a wedding, I think. I'm gonna skip over on. Okay. Just there's lots to talk about in this show. Just the process or what I wanted to do with it. One thing that was important is I really wanted to include a lot of the threads that have interested me in my sort of life in this klezmer Yiddish world. And so I wanted to really look at, a doina. I wanted to have nigunim. I wanted to look at klezmer or Yiddish theater music. And so I sometimes I even sampled things and really stole things from that repertoire. I did research. I found, for instance, a cantorial piece from Odessa from that time, but then I put words from Isaac Babel into the cantorial piece for a Kaddish that the gangster king at the funeral at the graveyard he does his speech. Here, just listen to a bit of that. But it's based on an actual cantorial piece.
Ich will halten a Rede, Chaver ihm und frei. Fahren die, wo seinen vermischt zum Tod. Fahren die, wo's hom nicht versucht dem Tarn von Leben.
So it's actually a very secular text, basically talking about economics, really, and quite a communist kind of text. But then it's kind of superimposed on this religious music at a key part in the story of where he really becomes the king. Okay, what was I going to say? Nothing.
I got to say that we're just about out of time.
Okay. Oh no.
Yes.
I did it again.
Well, we did it again, and
Okay.
that's what's great. So we'll just have to have you back again sometime to
talk about-
to
okay, one
finish
more thing.
talking about
Okay.
all this. But a couple of a bit of housekeeping. I'm going to let you guys in on a secret, and you're very lucky to hear this because you're going to be ahead of the game. You can hear
Can't wait to
Josh
hear.
again talk tomorrow. This is not on the schedule anywhere. This is a secret that you guys are the only ones who know, so don't tell anybody.
A Yiddish
If
Easter
you
egg.
want more Socalled at 11:30 a.m. tomorrow morning, Josh is going to do a pop-up session, which is free, but is limited to the first 20 people who get tickets in the morning. So you want to get here bright and early
Wow.
and ask for a ticket to So-Called's pop-up at 11:30, and then you can go see that. I also wanted to thank you, of course, and Josh will be around for the whole weekend, and we'll hear on stage at some point, or at maybe several points. And just let you know, we're really going to conclude now. We don't have time for questions because there's a concert at 2 o'clock, which is just a few minutes away.
Let him ask one question.
No, there's no time.
No time.
Really.
Okay, but I am an artist in residence, okay? So that means I'm here. So come and ask me anything, okay? I'll go hang out there. Outside.
Yeah.
In 19 minutes, there's another concert, but before that, come and ask me anything. I'm around. I'm really excited to answer any questions you may have.
So just, if you clear the room so we can prepare for the next speaker, which is at 3:30, which is going to follow up on the concert at 2 o'clock with Sam Sadegurski. Thank you so much.
Tales from Odessa, the musical, is available. You can listen to it. If you look online, you'll find it on Bandcamp and here and there, and maybe even for sale somewhere. But it's 15 years old. I have other things to tell you about. Thank you, Seth, for having me.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, everybody. See you soon.